walk-in soul is typically what happens is our spirit goes into a soul, it animates the body, and a walk-in soul is actually a replacement. There's a soul transference that happens. So a soul that's in a body leaves, another soul comes in. And this is all planned pre-incarnation. I'm not talking about a hijacking. I'm not talking about demonic possession. I'm talking about the way I see it is passing the baton or passing the torch. So one soul takes the body to a certain level and says, okay, I've completed my mission. It's time for the new soul to come in.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited to have Katie Bishop with me today. And the most amazing thing about Katie is that she is a walk-in. And this is fascinating to me. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what a walk-in is, but not only that experience of becoming a walk-in, but also the gifts that brought you, Katie. So, Katie, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thanks so much for having me. And I love the work that you do. I am the founder of a natural healing practice called Earth Bishop. And in my practice, I have various modalities that I use for self-healing. And what this means is it's really truly a remembrance of the self and bringing one's soul essence forward and making the subconscious conscious. So it's finding all of these attributes or shadow aspects within oneself and bringing them to the surface to be alchemized, to be cleansed, to be cleared and healed. And then as we're lifting off those energies that no longer serve us, we're bringing in higher frequencies that are going to heal all these wounded aspects of the self. And so I do that through different modalities, one of them being Akashic records, one of them being what I call an energy healing session, which is literally releasing some of these false programs, false belief systems that attach to us and become embedded within us. And they become stuck and they keep our emotions trapped. So that creates a block from us being able to connect to our higher self, to source, and it blocks us from manifesting the life that we really want to live. And I also do auric field clearings. This is really important to understand as well, because all disease starts as energy in the auric field. And when it's not released, when it's not recognized, it gets denser and denser and denser, and then it becomes an illness within the body. So I have several modalities. Now within my practice, I'm also an instructor. I love teaching. So I teach a course series called Sacred Mysteries monthly. And this is very important to the gifts, I guess you would say, that I bring into the world as well, which is connecting some of the dots of our history as a humanity, who we truly are, who we were before the Sumerian tablets, before the invasion of Anunnaki genetic manipulators, all of those things, connecting those dots. What does that look like from a spiritual perspective? What does it look like from this matrix programming that we've all been exposed to, etc.? So my practice is really twofold. It's the healing modalities and it's the teachings. And with the teachings comes learning how to heal yourself. A true healer knows that they're not actually doing the healing. We're just a conduit for it to happen, for the healing to take place. So we're holding the safe space. A true healer wants everyone to know how to heal themselves. And so that's a big part of what I do. I want people who come to me to not need me anymore, to learn how to do all the things that I'm doing themselves, and then share that with others. And that's how we change the world.
Yeah.
So that's a real nutshell.
Yeah, but I'm cheering you on as you're saying. We want, somebody that those of us that do this work. I don't want to be your fixer. I don't want to solve all your problems. That's what we want to do, is to be able to hand these gifts off to other people so that they can do it on their own. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's get to the fun part.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about a walk-in. So first of all, explain what a walk-in is.
Sure. Walk-in soul is well, typically what happens is our spirit goes into a soul. It animates the body, and a walk-in soul is actually a replacement. There's a soul transference that happens. So a soul that's in a body leaves, another soul comes in. And this is all planned pre-incarnation. I'm not talking about a hijacking. I'm not talking about demonic possession. I'm talking about the way I see it is passing the baton or passing the torch. So one soul takes the body to a certain level and says, okay, I've completed my mission. It's time for the new soul to come in. The new soul comes in and activates the next level of the mission for humanity. And really it's a mission about liberation and freedom and sovereignty and truth, bringing that back into the life wave of our species and our planet. So it's a soul transference. Now, there are many different ways that can manifest. Quite often, it's an NDE or near death experience because when that transference happens, the body needs to be almost at a catatonic state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it almost needs to be in a state of death. And so that's when the transference will happen. And that's when a lot of times people who come out of a near death experience are enlightened. And all of a sudden they want to change the world and they're spiritual and they're almost like a new person. A lot of times that's because a walk-in came in. Now, in my situation, it was very unusual because I walked in what's called in alignment. So I did not have a near death experience. I literally was consciously aware of what was happening in that moment. I call it a moment of grace. And what led to that point in time was the previous soul was going through a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
I was purging and trying to come to grips with trauma that I had experienced. And I was facing my own egoic self. And it felt like a death.
Mm-hmm.
I literally felt like I was dying. And during that moment, when I thought I couldn't go on any longer, I cried out for help. And in that moment, I had an image of an angelic being, a white angelic being, touching my heart space. And in this moment is when the transference happened. And it was like the best way I can describe what that felt like was when Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz goes from a world of black and white and then steps into a world of color.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as that soul transference took place, all of my, I guess you could say, more supernatural abilities came online. So I had the Kundalini experience, pineal gland opening, and I was able to see multidimensionally, instantaneously. And again, this is an unusual walk-in situation, but that was my experience as a walk-in. And with being a walk-in, you retain all the memories of the previous soul. So I have all those experiences, I have all those memories, and we are from the same oversoul. So in some ways, I am that soul, but at a more spiritually advanced level. So if you were to take 20 years of spiritual teachings gradually, it's like I had all of those impact all in one moment, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's a lot. So, okay, so this happened in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've had time to adjust to this. You know, you said something that was interesting to me because when of course, information is so different and everybody's experience is so different. But the only thing that I'm not that educated in walk-ins, and so that's why I'm asking you. Like, I know nothing because I really know nothing. But whenever I've heard about a walk-in, I thought that I had heard that when the soul leaves, that the human forgets, but
Oh,
you remembered everything. So, do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. So now, again, I can only speak from my experience, and I know there are so many different varieties of walk-in situations that happen and experiences, and I know there can be memory glitches and things like that of that nature. I did not experience that, but what I experienced with the past memories from before 2011 is that they feel very distant. They feel like they happened to someone else.
Okay.
So not as connected to them. Now, I also need to address the fact that I walked in 2011, and it wasn't until 10 years later that I was able to activate my healing practice. And there's a reason for that.
Uh-huh.
That 2011, 2012 timeframe, as I'm sure you know, was a really critical moment in our evolution. And there was a lot of timeline convergence. And so there was actually a fleet of walk ins that I was a part of that came in 2011 to flip the game upside down and almost change the frequency of the planet overnight. Now, when that happens, there is targeting that happens. Unfortunately, we're on a three-dimensional plane, a dual polarity universe. And so there is the darkness that exists. Of course, outside of the construct, it doesn't. We're all one. But in this reality that we're experiencing, there are negative factions. And I was heavily targeted. And I had some extremely negative experiences happen that prevented me from being able to activate my practice. And I have a book coming out next month that goes into great detail about what that experience was and what that entailed. I don't want to go into that today because it's dark and it's negative, and that's not the purpose.
Yeah.
But it's helpful to have that information for people who have experienced that and need a voice for that and want understanding on how to heal from that. So that's all in my book. But I wanted to clarify why there was such a big gap, because that was not my choice.
Yeah.
And it didn't give me a lot of time to adjust because I went immediately into fight or flight survival mode. I lost everything. I lost my home. I was living out of my car at a motel. It was a disaster. So it really took me a long time to have to rise from the ashes and get myself stabilized in this 3D world to be able to bring forward the information and the healing that I'm doing now.
Well, I think that's important what you just said, because, like you said, I think you were in the midst of the dark night of the soul. And,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden this light comes in. Was it a little bit traumatic for you when were you kind of like lost and not really know what to do with it? And then you were trying to deal with both sides, the human realm and the spiritual aspect?
It was very confusing
Yeah.
because the switch was so severe and so traumatic. It was almost like a psychosis,
Yeah.
because all of the sudden the whole I'm seeing multidimensionally, and I had never seen that before. And I didn't have the vocabulary. I was not in the spiritual realm. I grew up in the Midwest being Catholic. And so everything I was experiencing was completely new to me. Now, I walked in with a lot of this knowledge, but I didn't have the context in the human that I was in as to what I was experiencing. I didn't have the terminology walk in. I kept saying, I just landed in this body. I didn't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
So it was a very confusing time period for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for people to understand that. A lot of times when people, they call it the awakening. I'm not sure if that's, what you would call what you experienced. But a lot of times when all of a sudden this energy comes in, and a lot of times people are in a dark place, and then all of a sudden this comes in and people don't know how to handle it or even explain it or what's going on. All of a sudden, something's different and you don't know how to sort through what was yesterday and then what's today. Is that how you would explain it?
Exactly. Now, one of the nice things about walking in alignment, having that moment of grace, is I didn't have a lapse of needing to recover from a near death experience or an accident. So the memory
Mm-hmm.
and the information that I was walking in with was very fresh. I almost alluded to, like, okay, I walked in with a briefcase and I was able to lay out the papers and see, this is what I'm doing. This is my purpose. This is my soul mission. This is what I'm bringing into the world. It was very clear to me. And what's jarring about that is that it's a completely different direction that I was in at that point in my life.
Yeah.
And so the mission really came through as reactivating our own natural healing abilities and to remember and reestablish our symbiotic relationship with our planet and the Mother Earth, and to resurrect the divine feminine principle, which is all about wisdom and truth and
Mm-hmm.
balance. So it was very clear that I was to write a book, and that I was to be teaching some of these mystery teachings where all the gaps in our history are. So I had all of that information, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to manifest that or how I was going to bring that forward. And I had entanglements from the lifetime before 2011. And that's what happens often with a walk-in soul is you inherit the issues or some of the karma or some of the things that need to be resolved. So I had to take care of a lot of that, which was very messy and very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to explain this because I've had so many conversations with people that have had these experiences and having to sort through the old. And then, I constantly have people tell me when I'm doing sessions with people of, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how it's going to unfold. I don't know how to do it. Right now I'm just walking in circles and I don't know what direction to go. So, do you have, and of course, this isn't an easy explanation, but just trying to be able to help people to kind of formulate if they're feeling that way. When you're feeling like, I know that there's more, I have these gifts, and I know that I need to do something with it, but I don't know what to do. Do you have advice?
Absolutely. So many people are struggling with that today because
Yeah.
they have a higher calling and they have a higher passion and they have a connection to their own divinity, but they're stuck in front of a computer screen doing, data entry or whatever it may be. And they're not fulfilling, they feel stuck because they can't fulfill their soul's mission and they have to survive.
Yeah.
How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to support my children? I have to work 3 jobs to pay the bills and to have healthcare and all of these things. And you're trapped. And I completely empathize with that because I experienced that. I was a single working mother and I had to work a 3D matrix job that felt like it was, you know, uh, crushing my soul. So how do you get out of that in this debt slave system that we're in? That's a fantastic question. And it looks a little bit, everyone has a different path and a different journey with that. But here's where you start. You start with understanding who it is that you really are, who it is that you really want to be. And when you look at that clearly, you're going to see that from your true heart space, your innate nature is to be kind and compassionate and to be in service of the planet and of others. And when you really embrace that and you understand that, you see that there's nothing holding you back from doing that now. And so when you start living that way as though you're not limited, you go to your 3D matrix job being kind, being compassionate, being patient with others, seeing those who are still asleep as an opportunity to plant seeds and for you to be the light. You bring the light and you bring the higher frequency into every building you go into and every meeting you go into. And sometimes that means you don't even speak at all. You just hold that ground. You anchor in that energy and that frequency. You're doing your soul mission. So when you start living that in your 3D world where it feels limiting, but you change your perspective on it, that's when the external world shifts. This is one of the laws of the universe, as within, so without.
Yeah.
So you make that shift internally, and then what's going to happen is new opportunities, new people are going to come into your life with some ways for you to maybe gain new skills or a path for you to take to really let your internal innate soul mission shine. So, but the starting point is always starting within and changing your perspective and being who you want to be and who you truly are all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's a really important, and I guess we're kind of stepping off of course, but I think this is really important what you said, because I've had so many people that have gotten into this place of feeling like they have to do something, just exactly what you said, but they don't understand that this innate gift that we're given starts within. And when we start seeing the world differently, our surroundings differently, even though we may not love our job, you have the ability to share that gift starting with the person that's sitting in the cubicle next to you. So I really want people to hear what you said, because people think that you have to stand on a stage and preach, or do all the classes or write books and become the centerpiece, when we don't really kind of understand that you know we're all giving these gifts to stand in this energy so that we can start changing the people around us, changing our environment, just exactly what you said. And that's where it all begins. And that is so significantly important. I don't think people realize how important it is to be that light.
You're so right. We overcomplicate it, and we put more pressure on ourselves than we really need. Everyone thinks, okay, I've got to go out and I've got to save the whole world. You need to save your world first. You need to be in your frequency, living your truth and being authentic in your life. And I love the reverse of the phrase, go big or go home.
Yeah.
What it should be is stay home and go big.
Yeah.
You have got to be the master of your own relationships and your own home environment and your own heart space before you can have an impact on the world. If you're not living in your own truth, or if you're holding on to resentment or anger that's turned into depression or jealousy, if you haven't done this shadow work, self-reflective work, you're not going to be able to activate your soul mission, because you're not going to be living in your truth. You're going to have all these blocks that are embedded, and this is the hard work. If it wasn't hard, everyone would be doing it, and most people aren't doing it. Most people are doing spiritual bypassing and escapism,
Yeah.
and the work is going deeper within. And then when you do that work deeper within, that's when everything starts to shift for you. But you won't be able to be activating your gifts on a larger scale, on a public scale, or however it may be, until you've embodied it.
Yeah. And the reason why it's so important, I my guides always call it, this is we're in this transition phase of where it's time to become selfish. That we're
Mhm.
so taught and conditioned that you're not supposed to think about yourself, you're supposed to think about everybody else, and you'll only be a good human if you give, 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 give. And if you ever think about yourself and what you want or who you are, then something's wrong with you. You're selfish. You're not thinking about me, which is always interesting when the people are saying you're supposed to cater to me, but and again, it's like this weird loop. But anyway, that's beside the point. But what the point is that this is this beautiful time of going inward and finding our truth. And like you said, it's time to work on ourselves and let our the things that confine us into the structure of everything else, the exterior world, and go inward and find this love and compassion and this beautiful light that's within us.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is we have a really convoluted viewpoint of self-love. And like you said, especially as women and as mothers, we're constantly pouring from an empty cup because there's no one behind us filling us up. So
Yeah.
we have to learn how to have that healthy self-nurturing and that healthy self-respect. It's not egoic.
Hmm.
When you fall in love with your true nature and who you truly are, and it's in a healthy way,
Yeah.
in a self-respecting way, because you know that you are an emanation of a true divine source that's connected to everything else. You know that when you're caring for yourself, you're actually caring for everyone else. When you're healing yourself, you're healing the planet. So it's not, we're taught to be that's selfish, but that's a program. That's external conditioning trying to tell you who you are. No one can tell you who you are except for you.
Right. And I like what you said about the planet, because the more that we can stand in our love and our compassion and the higher frequency energies, then we affect the planet. And the way that I always see it is that the energy field that is coming from the core of the earth all the way up to the ethers, and this heavy 3D energy, we're dissipating that energy the more that we stand in our light, and that we're bringing that light in. And we are shifting this old heavy belief structure, and just confirm that whenever the way that I see it is that if I can start shifting and start loving myself and seeing the world a little bit differently, then that thick, dense energy gets a little bit thinner. And then if I can share this love with somebody else and they start seeing life this way, then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And we're just putting out more love and light, 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 light. And that's what people don't understand, this concept. But you understand what I'm saying, because I see you shaking your head.
Well, yeah, that's a great visual that you gave. I love that. And it is directly connected to our planet. And in this time that we're all experiencing collectively. This is an age of deception and distraction,
Yeah.
and everything is distracting us from bringing in that light and from connecting to our true selves and to connecting to our planet. A lot of what we're seeing, even in this new age spiritual community, is this disassociation and this almost putting up on a pedestal other galactic entities and other beings and people who are in contact with that. And that is a real thing, but that's not where the importance is.
Yeah.
The importance is having this experience through the human, this experience in humanity, to experience this range of emotions and this range of contrast and this ability to co-create with nature, with each other, with a divine source energy. That's what it is. So if you really want to claim your power, it's not going to be trying to decide if you're Pleiadian or Syrian or Andromedan. It's going to be saying, I'm a human, I'm a Terran, and I am so proud of that, because this is an incredible experience, dropping and descending all the way into this 3D false inverted matrix as a debt slave and rising up from all of this conditioning and programming that was designed to keep me down. And I collapsed it for myself, and I'm going to help others collapse it for themselves, because we live in this incredible world that has infinite potential when once we realize it, and once we come out of that thick fog
Yeah.
of the 3D.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's time to go inward. Let's go
Exactly.
inward, 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 instead of looking at and listening to all of the surroundings, whether it's the TV, whether it's, somebody else preaching or whatever it is. Go inward, and find our truth.
All that noise on the external is really designed to control,
Yeah.
and it's designed to suppress, and
Yep.
it's to keep your imagination down, and it's
Mhm.
to prevent you from remembering who you truly are and how powerful you are, because we all have this divine spark. So once you're able to see the difference between yourself and your programming, that's when you become empowered. And the only way to really do that is to disconnect. Um, you know, it, no one ever got to their deathbed and said, I wish I spent more time scrolling on Facebook, or I wish I spent more time, watching YouTube videos,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Those aren't the things that you're going to remember. And we literally need to put that into our focused consciousness on a daily basis, because we live in a bombardment of all of these messages, all of this programming, all of this social engineering. So when we're able to see it for what it is, and you choose what you want to ingest and what you want to look at, try to keep your emotions away from it, because you
Mhm.
don't want to mesh with anything negative that's going to create your reality. But detach from it and know who you truly are, and know how to take the information and make it relevant. Because again, there's so much distraction, there's so much data dumping of information that's not relevant, and there are rabbit holes that people are getting sucked into, and they're forgetting themselves and they're abandoning their soul mission when they
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Well, and let's just even go back to the way we were raised. You know, and what, I mean, I was raised. I had the belief system that my parents had all the answers.
Yeah.
And that whatever my parents told me, that's the way that it was.
Right.
And so I ingested their belief systems. And then now, as I get older and I start hearing different information, I recognize that I was programmed in a way to believe what our parents put on us, society, teachers, your environment. And we just kind of fall into this pattern as children, and not because we really can't. I mean, how many times were you able to say, no, I don't agree with my parents when they said you need to clean up your room? you know, it's kind of like we were forced to do it. So there's a lot of these things where we didn't really have the option. And of course, I come from a different generation. I think kids now, or the way that they're raised, they have more discussions. But I wasn't. I was never. No, you do what I say, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. And so it was really like that was all of the information that I was receiving was just from one person or two people's perspective. And then you go into school as children, and then you have a teacher telling you, this is how you have to do things. Sit down and be quiet. Don't talk in class. You have to behave a certain way, and then our peers tell us that you're ugly or you're not wearing the right thing, and then we start not feeling it, and we start developing these belief systems about ourselves. So, is that how you see?
Yes, that's how that is the world that we're brought up in this inverted matrix. And it's not that our parents or teachers are specifically trying to target us or program us. They don't know any better because that's how they
Exactly.
were programmed. So
Yeah.
it's this chain that we're trying to break. And especially growing up Catholic, I always saw the world differently. It never made sense to me. I always saw the world upside down and flipped backwards. And why are all the morals, on everyone's focus seems to be so upside down? And being raised Catholic, I had so many questions about God that didn't make sense. With the religious text, why is God so angry and jealous? And why does, he not want us to have knowledge or wisdom? That doesn't make any sense to me. But I was always too frightened to ask those questions because, you're indoctrinated and you're not invited to ask those questions.
Right.
And that's tyranny, that's control. And it wasn't until I really had my big walk-in awakening experience that I could see the truth behind a lot of these control structures that really shape our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our job to break through these systems and to take the parts of them that are helpful. It's not that all of them are all bad or all good. There are pieces and fragments that are based in truth and based in love and based in wisdom and unification. But the overarching control mechanism behind them and the programming that goes into it, those are the dark pieces that we have to liberate ourselves from. And what happens is it becomes our default method of operation because they're so embedded into our subconscious. It becomes our default method of thinking and
Mm-hmm.
operating. And it's a looping thought. And it's really challenging to break through those looping thoughts and those belief systems. It's hard. That's hard work. You're really having to make the subconscious conscious. And that takes effort and attention, and a lot of intention on the way you live, but it's possible and it's very liberating.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to 2011. Okay, so you said between 2011, if I remember correctly, from 2011 to 2020, that was kind of your integration time and trying to work through. So let's talk about that time frame, because like I'm curious to know about what you were experiencing from this new soul. How is it different than the way that you were seeing things before? What was it showing you? How was it guiding you? And how did you work through, adjusting to this new way of being?
Yeah, it was the challenge was the living situation that I walked into. And some of the negative experiences that came from having to disentangle myself from that and being surrounded by friends and family that couldn't comprehend what I was experiencing. So that time frame was much more about survival for me than anything else. It really wasn't until I got myself grounded in that 2021 timeframe when I felt more safe, and stable in the 3D world that I could really activate the gifts and really process everything. Because when you're in fight or flight, there's no processing. You're just trying to survive from day to day. And when I mentioned earlier that I experienced some dark things, and I don't necessarily want to go into them today because it includes things like being a targeted individual, being part of my labs, having the experience of part of my soul being harvested. That is a real thing. And so I did experience that in this my lab situation that I was in.
Huh.
It's very dark, and we could do a whole episode on that if you want to at some point. I just don't feel like go into the darkness today, and it's all in my book that's coming out. I explain everything, and then how that soul piece came back in 2021,
Mm.
and the process I went through of my own soul retrieval for that. And in my practice, soul retrieval is pretty much my favorite practice. I call it singing the soul back into the body. And we all have fragments of our soul that we've lost along the way because we've all had traumas. So there is a process that we can do to welcome those parts back. And part of me is very grateful for all the negative experiences I had, because now that I've had those, I know how to help people heal from them
Mm-hmm.
and get that storm. Because unfortunately, many of us that came here to do this work have been attacked or have had some kind of situation like that with some of these dark programs that have prevented us from activating our gifts and our mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's important for you to be able to share that because it's, a lot of people, like you said, when this whole soul transfer happened, you really didn't even know how to label it or describe it. So the more information that people can understand, I think is the better. But I think we'll come back and talk about this whole other thing. The harvesting thing is really interesting, but today isn't the day. Okay, so and again, I think that it's interesting, just between, for 9 years, having to learn how to adjust to these gifts. Because again, I think that, and this can be a regular process because we're in this crazy time where we're just getting new things are coming online so fast and so quickly. But we have to learn how to adjust and work through it, kind of
Yeah,
like
you're
you
on.
said.
Right. When all my gifts came online at one time, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, it was too much, and I didn't know how to control them. I would go out in public and I could hear other people's thoughts in their heads, and
Mm-hmm.
I hated it. It was completely overwhelming. All of my senses were on overdrive. And I was very, the subtle bodies were activated. So I was feeling and sensing things outside of the filters of our five senses, which I
Mm-hmm.
really feel like our five senses are filters. They can be gateways to activating your intuition and your supernatural abilities, but they're limiting. We have so much more um, that we that aren't online that we're able to activate as humans. We're just not aware of it. It's considered mystical or supernatural, but it actually is part of our divine template. So getting used to that and getting used to honing that, being able to control it more, um, was a process. And I did take some classes. So I thought it would be very helpful, and the guidance I was getting was to take some courses so that you have the vocabulary and you're able to articulate and communicate better on what you're bringing forward. So I did do a shamanic immersion program. I did 2 levels of alchemy school in Italy. I did Reiki training. I've done a lot of mystery school initiation training so that I could really ground in to the 3D what I was bringing in, because it was hard for me to articulate. And going through some of these schoolings and teachings that I did was very activating for me. And it brought back a lot of remembrance. And the soul retrieval part, learning that in my shamanic group, I thought, oh, there's a name for this? This is so great. I knew that's what I was doing, but I didn't know there was a name for some of these practices that I was doing and that other people were doing them too. And it gave me a great deal of confidence,
Mm-hmm.
because after walking in and really being so different, literally feeling like a complete, just not understanding being a part of the world the way it was, because I was here to change the world. So being able to um, have those learnings and those teachings really gave me a sense of security and validation that, okay, this is real, this is what I'm doing. And having some processes and practices and watching other people do them just helped me with my own practice. I've developed my own protocols and my own methods that make sense for me. But I'm always open. Other methods work for other people. We're all different. So I love learning. Um, I'll never stop learning, and I'll never stop teaching. To me, it's like that flow: learn,
Uh-huh.
teach, learn, teach. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important what you just said because I used to be a massage therapy instructor. I used to teach massage therapy, and and I was a massage therapist and taught and was the director of massage therapy school in Shreveport, Louisiana, back a long time ago. And Louisiana has requirements. And so you have to, in order to get licensed in Louisiana, you have to have an education, you have to take certain classes that have a specific curriculum. So of course, I'm running a school. So the school has to have certain protocols within each class. We taught a bunch of different modalities. The modality that I taught was Swedish massage. And so, I had to teach the basics. I had to teach, it was the very first class people walked into. So I had to teach people the very basics. And, step one, step two, would develop a routine so that all of the different techniques would be used. But it was always the understanding that I'm going to teach you the technique and the protocol. But when you start going on out on your own, then you're going to start finding your own gifts and your own way of doing things. And then you start implementing what comes naturally to you. So I think that education is extremely important just to get the foundation. And if you're going into something, your instructor, your teacher, mentor, whoever will express things and explain things the way that they experience, because that's the only way we can teach. I teach what I know, what I've experienced, but your experience may be very different, in the future or however this all unfolds. And so by allowing you not to stay so constricted and this is the only way, again, falling in the box, so get the foundation and the basic information. But then when you get through and you continue to grow, you're going to continue to alter and shift and change, and new ways are going to come in. And I think it's important for us to allow that to come in and not stay so structured on this is the only way. And that's probably what you've been finding is that, okay, I got the basic foundation, but now these new gifts are coming online and I'm getting to see things differently. And now you can implement them the way that you feel the best. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the foundation. Having that foundation, I think, is really important and really critical in getting that hands-on experience.
Mhm.
Um, that's invaluable. Um, and then it is about your own creation. We're all
Yeah.
different. We're all here. We all have different experiences and we see the world differently. So bringing forth the way I bring forth my Akashic record readings might be different than the way you do it. And that's okay. They can both be right. And the message will come through just in a different way that's unique to us.
Yeah.
So I like in all of my teachings and all of my sessions, I always say, take what resonates with you,
Yeah.
what feels right to you. This is supposed to be expansive, not contraction, not
Mhm.
constriction. You should feel more open, more free after taking a class with me, after taking a session with me. Your perception should be expanded.
Yeah.
This is a really key rule to go by in the stage of deception. If you're working with someone and they're constricting you, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If you're working with someone and they're incongruent with what they teach and how they actually act, that's a red flag too. There's a lot of unfortunately there are some practitioners out there that are false light, and there's some teachers and informers out there that are false light, and they'll come to you with, oh, everything is love and light and everything's wonderful and I'm a healer and this and that, and they're not. They're controlled by something else. So we
Yeah.
have to activate our own wisdom and our own intuition when we're opening ourselves up to healing sessions or learning new modalities. So
Mhm.
this is where again you have to know yourself,
Yep.
because if you don't know who you are and what you stand for, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
So you have to activate that heart wisdom that
Mhm.
is with you, that's going to tell you, okay, even though this looks good on the outside, I'm going to refrain from engaging with that because it doesn't feel good. It feels
Yeah.
constricted to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Cheering you on, girl. Listen to the wisdom. She knows what she's talking about. Okay, so from 2011 to 2020, you integrated, you found yourself, you figured out the system, you kind of got yourself all put back together again. So tell me what happened in 2020 for you.
Well, it was in 2020, our whole world shifted.
Yep.
Now with Corona or COVID, while that was devastating, in some ways, there's a really big silver lining with that, because it made those of us who were awake and aware and completely aware of the false 3D matrix structure, it brought us together. It made it clear for us to see each other, because there weren't very many of us out there against the you know what. So those of us who were speaking out found each other. I found friends and supporters that I never would have connected with if it weren't for some of the medical freedom groups that I was involved
Mhm.
with. So that time frame was really a big shift, not only for me personally, but for our entire world. Everything was different after that. And in that time frame, going into 2021, is when I did have my soul retrieval come back, and this is when it almost felt like a re-walk-in experience, because I was getting those soul parts back. I was getting that remembrance back. I was having contact with my soul family, which I write a lot about in the book. And I'm not a big fan of sharing ET contact because I think it's distracting. Those of us who are having real, genuine, benevolent contact, we're not talking about them. We're talking about how to be human.
Yeah.
We're talking about what it means to be human and how to take care of each other and how to take care of our planet. That's the message. It's not about them.
Mhm.
So I really had a big influx and remembrance of, again, myself and my mission and the outlines of what I need to be teaching. And a lot of that falls under understanding the construct of our reality in general, understanding these universal laws and how they play into the reality construct and how we can use them to
Mhm.
transcend the matrix structure altogether.
Mhm.
And then it also, again, with the sacred mysteries, is bringing back that divine feminine presence, that principle of wisdom, balance, and heart anchored living. So all of that was rushing forward. And um, again, I was a single working mom, so it was really difficult to physically activate the practice and try to bring in an income and take care of children. But I could see the long term plan. I was activating piece by piece. And this is the advice I would want to give to everyone who knows that they have a higher calling. Go slow. Don't feel like you have to make this big shift overnight. It won't work. You do what you can do, honor yourself. The law, think of the law of assimilation. Again, these universal laws. Our bodies and our minds can only handle embodied change in little increments,
Mhm.
almost so much so that we don't even notice that the change is happening. So just do one little bit each day. If you can just, if you're trying to build your own practice, or you're trying to write a book, or you're trying to build something based on your higher calling, don't get overwhelmed by it. Stay present, because we create in the present. So you don't want to get too overwhelmed by the future and feeling pressure and anxiety of what you feel like you need to be doing. You are doing it. The process is part of the whole journey and the result that you're going to bring forward. And you need to stay in the present moment, because you might take turns in your path that you didn't see coming, and you won't understand what those are unless you're in the present moment.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice. But in that little time frame, again, it was almost like another great remembrance for me. And being in a place stable enough in my life where I could actually start the practice. And when I started, I was still working my 3D matrix job. So I was doing like part-time, my corporate job, and then part-time with my healing practice, and trying to put all of my courses together as well. So it was a lot. It was a big undertaking, but again, that's what I'm designed to do. That's what I'm designed to bring in. And I loved it. There's nothing else I want to be spending my time doing.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the most important thing that? Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I have 15 questions. Okay, so what do you think is the most important thing that you want to share with our audience from the gift of having the walk-in? Did I ask that question right?
Sure. So from from my experience and my perspective, I want everyone to embrace that feminine principle within them, because that is the key that's going to unlock everything. Because that is the uncontrollable force of divine unconditional love that we don't have on this planet, that is coming in and taking over. So this is learning how to truly receive unconditional love. This is learning how to truly give unconditional love, how to love the unlovable, how to love someone that you know can't love you back. It's these really difficult lessons in love that we don't have on this planet because we have transactional love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's based in judgments and it's based on projections. A lot of it is based on lust and limerence, and we
Mhm.
confuse that with love. So our idea of love is very convoluted. And while people say, oh, love is the answer, we don't even understand what love is. We're not practicing it the right way.
Yeah.
So let's figure out what that is and let's bring that in and let's manifest that and let's embody that and let's practice that, because that is the key to your soul fulfillment
Yeah.
and to all healing. So love is the answer, but we have to be really clear on what that actually looks like and what it means.
Yeah, because again, we've been told what love is.
Mhm.
I mean, how many people have we talked to that feel like a partner would make everything better again? And so, it's not about me being whole and complete and standing in the truth of who I am and loving myself wholly and completely. It's like that's not even on the spectrum. Like that doesn't have anything to do with the only way I'm going to be happy is if I have a partner. And that's that 3D belief system for sure. So anyway, again, everybody take note.
Now,
Because
a big part of
yeah,
this also comes with, forgiveness.
uh,
And that's convoluted because a lot of people think, well, if I forgive someone, I'm saying that that's acceptable for them to treat me poorly. And that's not what forgiveness is about at all. Forgiveness is a release. It's unhooking yourself from letting that situation have power in your mind and controlling you. It's a letting go process.
mhm,
So, and it's being able to see that person as being wounded themselves, because only hurt people hurt people. People
mhm,
who are happy and fulfilled with their lives don't do cruel things, and they don't try to hurt others, and they don't try to suppress others. So when you're able to rise above that and see it for what it is, you free yourself, you break yourself free from forgiveness. So it's
mhm,
really what I would say, coming in from the walk in perspective, is that true, infinite, divine love, embodiment of that, and forgiveness as well. And those are really the principles of the 4D structure, which
mhm.
we're going to. Everyone talks about 5D, but we can't really get to 5D until we've mastered 4D.
Right.
So let's focus on that because we have not mastered those things.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. So, what gifts? Yeah, I mean, okay. So through 2011 to 2020, you were kind of getting integrated, and you were trying to just figure out what the heck's happening here. And then from 2020 again, then everything kind of started making sense and coming online to you. Is that right?
Well, one
Yeah.
of the things that I did that was really key piece of what I work on was doing entity attachment release. And I know this can be a sensitive subject and people don't want to admit it, but we are in a multidimensional realm, and there are entities that we can't see that can hook into our energy field and actually
Mhm,
drain us or work through us.
mhm,
And one of the things that is a big part of my mission is freeing people from these kinds of entities and actually having some mercy on the entities themselves and giving them a place to go until we have this shift and figuring out what that looks like. So I
mhm,
did one of my trainings and my hands-on learnings that I did was with Dave and Cheryl Bryan. They're two of the top exorcists in the world.
mhm,
They have an amazing story. So I learned a lot from them. And again, as with everything, some of their teachings I took, some of them I didn't. But one of the big pieces that I'm here to do is be that bridge in between the spiritual realm, the disembodied spirits, and the material plane, and being able to help people break free from attachments that come in all different forms. I mean, it's not just demonics, it's earthbound spirits, it's egregores, it's AI. There's all different entities that can attach that you can't see with your physical eyes.
mhm.
And then at a higher level, it's being able to bridge and create a place for these entities to go to their next stage of evolution.
Well, how do the entities affect us?
They can affect us. If you have one attached to you, it can really be the underpinnings of the way you operate and the way you think. And the problem with that is they know you better than you know yourself. So you may not know that you have one. They are the source of all kinds of addiction, of all kinds of destructive behavior, self
Mhm.
sabotage, looping patterns, things like that. So they can really cause a lot of destruction in someone's life. They can cause a lot of depression. They can cause a lot of impulse control, problems with impulse control. Because these entities, they don't, again, they're disembodied. So they're living through you. So they want to feel things like alcohol, drugs, sex, drama. A lot of times when people are acting out, having a spirit act out through them, it's almost like they're a different person. And you see that when people have been drinking alcohol heavily,
Mhm.
right? That's coming through is a spirit. We literally call it drinking spirits.
Mhm.
So this problem or issue is something I would love to take the stigma out of. Instead of being like, oh, I'm scared to talk about, demonics or entities, let's open the door to that because it affects everyone. Everyone at some point has probably had something attached to them at one point
Mhm.
or another. And they probably are working with someone or have a loved one that has something attached to them. So when we're able to recognize it and know how to identify it and know how to help people release it, then we're going to be thriving at a much higher level.
Yeah. And I can say that I've had those attachments. I can be the one. I mean, I've had some experiences that either it can be somebody that maybe they felt like I betrayed them and they're throwing the arrows at me. I mean, it can be so many different things where you can, and especially somebody that's empathic, and I am the sponge. I pull in everything. And I used, I have a friend who I call my cleaner, who comes in and cleans out all of the energy from everybody else, and whether it's somebody that's walking down the street, whether it's like, again, it can be so many different ways that we receive these energies. And so it is kind of important. And again, it takes away our true identity. It takes away, because we start getting those influences from them. Yeah. So
Exactly.
yeah. And
It can be draining too. It can make you really tired and it can
yeah.
cloud your thinking process and
Mhm.
can give you brain fog and it can actually cause physical disease as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Change our personalities and all that stuff too. Absolutely. Yeah. So you've got a beautiful little tool chest of devices, or I guess I shouldn't call them devices, but techniques that can assist in healing. So would you mind naming some of the things that you do? Well, name all the things that you do because you got a bunch.
Yeah, I have quite a lot. So if you're overwhelmed and you're not sure where to start, on my website I have a strategy session, and that's like a 30-minute. Well, just let me talk to you. Let's figure out the issues, and I offer talk therapy and guidance too on top of all of the modalities because sometimes a big part of healing is just having your voice heard and just being able to ask questions and have guidance from someone that can kind of see the playing field from a larger perspective.
Mhm.
But I use the Akashic records as well. I do readings for that. I don't do it in a way that let's go in and just see who you were. And I don't do it in an egoic way where like maybe you were royalty or maybe you're Cleopatra. I use them as a healing tool. So if someone has like a soul part that might be trapped from a past life that didn't get released, it's like stuck in time because it had such a traumatic death, we're going to go in and we're going to look at that. Or if there's some kind of karmic entanglement that keeps repeating itself, we're going to go in and see what that situation looks like. Um, I do entity attachment removal, as I was just talking about all of these different entities that attach to us. There's earthbounds, there's demonics, there's AI, there's egregores, whatever it may be. I have a process for removing those. I also do an auric field bio clearing. This is huge because our auric field is this electromagnetic field around us. It can be measured. It's real. This isn't, imaginary. It is our first immune system. It is like an organ in itself because all disease starts there. So we want to keep this flowing. We want to keep our field flowing. We want to keep it fresh. We want to remove any kind of darkness or blockages. So I have a process that I do for that. I also have a process called a frequency override. And I write all about how I came to this method in my book, but it's basically utilizing time alchemy. And I originally designed it to override victims who had experienced SRA, very dark, traumatic ritual abuse. And I use it to heal that, but I also use it to override timelines where maybe you had a time in the past where you were not behaving at your best behavior and you want to make amends. And we will use time alchemy, and almost similar to like a Ponopono type of process where we will overlay that with a higher frequency, another outcome, and the timelines will merge.
Mm.
So we'll shift your reality using that frequency override process. Um, and I do soul retrieval, which I mentioned before, which is absolutely my favorite. I love singing the soul back into the body. I usually don't like to do a soul retrieval on anyone until I've done a clearing, because the soul parts won't come back unless you're ready to receive and until your whole biofield is cleared. I also do a number of custom training sessions. So I love teaching telepathy. This is the next level that we need to take humanity to, is being able to control your thoughts and your mind so that we can start communicating on a telepathic level, because higher beings communicate on a telepathic level. And, if you can't control your thoughts and how to communicate them and how to transmit them properly, someone else will be doing that for you. So we don't want that to happen. So I love doing telepathy training. I do psychic training, intuition training, how to tap into your intuition. And I might be missing a few things, but they're all on my website. And I think that's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, I can't believe how much stuff you do. What I would like to do is to have you come back so that we can talk more about just what you do and the services that you offer, because you're amazing. So we need to wrap up. So is there anything that you feel like you want to share with the audience before we let you go?
I do. I have a retreat coming up in October, an in-person retreat for 3 days in Georgia, and it's going to be transformational. And I have a few other partners working with me. And so if what I'm saying resonates with you, this is a really good opportunity to accelerate your spiritual journey. That's how retreats are. And the whole theme is on the transformation or the metamorphosis of a butterfly. And one of the really cool parts of the butterfly is they have these things called imaginal cells, which is their blueprint, and cells that don't get activated until they're ready to make that journey into the chrysalis and do the metamorphosis into a butterfly.
Oh.
And so that's what this whole retreat is about. And there's even a butterfly center at the resort that we're going to be at. So I would really welcome everyone who is at that pivotal stage where they're kind of ready to break through, or they need to take a break, or they're feeling burnt out, or they're feeling a higher calling. Take a look at that. It's on my website. It's going to be a really amazing time.
And so when is that?
That's October 16th through 19th.
Okay, and actually isn't going to be airing until after that date.
Oh,
But
no.
no, but the reason why I let you continue to finish is because of the information that you just provided about how significant that is. So I think that, even if the retreat has already passed, to find out more information about what you're presenting, and people can reach out to you to find out more, I think, about that. So, sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's fine, because afterwards, we're going to do a little virtual retreat based on that.
Yeah,
So,
and yeah. I think that's why that I wanted you to share that thought, because I thought people could follow up with you on it. So great. So pay attention, you guys. Go to Katie's website and find out more information. And what a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all your knowledge and wisdom. Now, one more thing. How can people contact you? What is your website?
It's earthbishop.com. So everything is on there. All of my social media is under Earth Bishop. And if you go to my website, there's a lot of free tools and free resources for you as well. So enjoy that. And there's even a free Sacred Mysteries class on the origins of the Matrix. So, have fun exploring that. And that's the best way to find me and my information.
Okay. And it's earthbishop.com.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So for you guys, that the website will be listed in the video description down below. So just scroll to the bottom of the description, and then you'll see Katie's website information there. And so again, Katie, thank you for being here, and thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.